It's the International Soccer Preview, and we are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 28, looking at the groups and teams of the 2024 Copa America. This episode is looking at the players of USA. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin, and this is Series 28 on the players of the 2024 Copa America. This episode covers USA's players. We're doing this mediacast in two parts. Part one here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors to categorize them into definite, likely, possible, and so on. Part two will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected. At that time, we'll go back over the list that we create here and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode will have three sections. Section 1, we're going to look at some general information on the team. In Section 2, we will cover the main candidates in each position and their likelihood of making the squad. And in Section 3, we're going to summarize and we have some concluding business. Let's begin then with Section 1. We usually begin with retirements, but for the USA, we have no retirements since the 2023 Gold Cup. That was only a couple of, in the summer of 2023, so not that long ago. So no major retirement since then. We'll take a brief look at the club affiliations. I remember back in, Jurgen Klinsmann, the manager before 2016, had made a big point of saying that American players needed to play in Europe. Well, they've taken that up with a vengeance now. Most of the A team does play for European teams, and they're top players for some pretty good ones. So those good ones are actually all in Italy right now. We have Yunus Musa and Christian Pulisic playing for AC Milan, and Weston McKennie and Timothy Weah both playing for Juventus. But other players play for, I would say, secondary clubs, but say top division clubs anyway, especially in England and in Italy, but also a couple in Spain and Netherlands and France as well. Most of the B team plays for American teams, which is a healthy league, growing, I would say, in its status. And yeah, we won't go into too much detail because we are going to give a bio on the players, which where we'll tell you which team they play for. So club affiliations on the whole improving for the USA. Let's move on to recent games. This is a bit of a long section for USA because it's complex. For most teams, we're examining the participation of players from the previous World Cup in December 2022. So effectively from the beginning of 2023. USA, however, sent their B team to their Gold Cup in the summer of 2023. That really doesn't tell us what we're looking for here, which is who their A-team players are. We do, by the way, assume that USA will send their A-team to this tournament. We'll see, I guess, if they don't. We're a little concerned about it because some CONCACAF teams had the World Cup in December of 2022 and then the Gold Cup in the following summer of 2023. And they also face another Gold Cup in the summer of 2025. So it's no surprise, actually, that USA and Canada, by the way, sent a mostly B team to the Gold Cup in the summer of 2023. Mexico, however, sent their A team to both the World Cup and the Gold Cup. So we're concerned, particularly for Mexico, that they may not be sending their A team to this tournament. We're less concerned for USA and for Canada, although we have some concern, but we do assume they'll send their top players to this one, having sent their B team to the Gold Cup there. Anyway, because of that, we're examining participation of USA players from after the Gold Cup. So I'm just going to summarize those games. It is two friendlies in September and two in October. In November, they played the quarterfinals of the 2023-24 Nations League. And that quarterfinals doubled as qualifications for this Copa America tournament. In January, USA had a friendly with Slovenia. That team was almost entirely, I'm going to say, a C team for USA. Almost none of the players were familiar, and it was clearly a recruitment game. So although we do add this game to the players' game count of 9 games since the Gold Cup, most of the A-team players will have a gap in their record there, and we won't be talking about that game much at all. In March 2024, though, there was 2 games for the Nations League finals, so that makes up the 9 games. In terms of tournaments, the USA is now regularly a participant in World Cup competitions, although they did miss the 2018 edition. For their local tournaments or their regional tournaments, they qualify automatically. Actually, it was until recently. Now there's a bit of a perfunctory qualification for the USA, who is now consistently hosting the tournament. So as mentioned, the Gold Cup is every 2 years, and frankly, that's too often, and the reason that we see teams sometimes sending B teams to that tournament. Anyway, USA has participated consistently in all tournaments then, except the 2018 World Cup. We'll be talking about that when we give the bio of players, but perhaps not going into too much detail for that and for their club histories. We felt in the 2022 World Cup media cast that we did give too much detail on that, but if you are interested in those details, we recommend the player media cast for the 2022 World Cup because not much has changed since then. Okay, that is the long recent game section. Let's go to formations and look at the formations for the USA in the last 9 games. And for formations, we're going to consider also the World Cup. The World Cup was also under manager Berhalter, so the World Cup plus the 8 games, we'll say, since the Gold Cup, not including that friendly in January of 2024, makes up 12 games. And in 6 of them, they used a 4-3-3 formation. So that is 8 out of the 12 games, or 67%, or 2/3, however you want to see it. So quite consistent in their formation there. In 2 of the games, or almost 20% of them, they used a 4-2-3-1 formation. And then in the other 2 games, they used 2 different formations. So mostly we're looking at a 4-3-3 formation, and we'll keep that in mind as we go through the squads. And one thing to note there is that regardless of the formation, it's always 4 at the back for the USA. So 2 central defenders, a left back and a right back. Okay, that is their formations, and let us finish with yes, a look at their warm-up games prior to the Cup. So they have 2 of them scheduled. One is friendly against Colombia in the USA because the tournament is taking place there. Even the non-USA teams want to kind of practice in the country where the tournament is taking place. So it's USA against Colombia on June 8th and a friendly against Brazil on June 12th. So those are the 2 warm-up games, and we'll be looking forward to looking at the lineup for those games because that may give us an indication as to the starting lineup for the USA. Although I must say, as confusing as it's been in the past with the USA's B teams and A teams and a bit of clouding between who belongs to which, it's more clear now and they've been using a fairly consistent squad over the period that we're looking at here. Anyway, that brings us to the end of section 1. Let's move on to section 2, the main order of business here, looking at the candidates for USA. So we begin with manager Greg Berhalter. And Berhalter was a player for the USA from 1994 to 2006, and played in Germany for smaller teams and for Crystal Palace in England, and was part of several tournaments, including the 2002 and 2006 World Cup there. But he didn't see much field time in those games. As a manager, he began as an assistant at the LA Galaxy in the USA. He did manage a team in Sweden, Hammarby, and Columbus Crew in the United States. For the United States national team, he took the job in 2018, and that stint ended in 2023. But after searching for a manager for a year, they gave the position once again to him. So his second stint begins in 2023. So that's Greg Berhalter. He has managed them through the 2019 and 2021 Gold Cups, and also the World Cup in 2022. We'll talk a little bit, kind of a summary of the broader manager situation here, kind of leading up to Berhalter. So after USA disastrously lost their last qualifying match to Trinidad and Tobago and failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup, Bruce Arena resigned from his second stint managing the team. Arena's assistant, David Sarakan, took over for a year as the interim manager before Greg Berhalter was appointed, and he was appointed in December of 2018. And as we saw, he led them through some tournaments, second place in the 2019 Gold Cup, a title win in the 2021 edition, and then qualification 4 and playing to the round of 16 in the 2022 World Cup. His contract expired in December of 2022, and 2 assistants were named as interim managers in turn. The second one was BJ Callahan, who led their B team to a semi-final finish in the 2023 Gold Cup. And apparently unable to find a suitable manager, they rehired Berhalter in June 2023, and his contract goes until the end of the World Cup in 2026. So that is the manager situation. Greg Berhalter leading them through yet another tournament. And let's go on to goalkeepers and list the candidates first. So we have a definite candidate in Matt Turner, a likely candidate in Ethan Horvath, and a possible candidate in Drake Callender, a possible but unlikely candidate in Sean Johnston, and also Gabriel Slonina, also possible but unlikely. And then seemingly off the squad is Zach Steffen. Now, for these possible but unlikely or seemingly off the squad candidates, we're not going to go much beyond mentioning their names, but we will kind of come back and give more details on them if they are selected. Okay, let's look at our definite candidate, Matt Turner. He's 29 years old, and he has 39 caps and no goals for the USA since 2021. And he plays for Nottingham Forest in England since 2023. He was with Arsenal before that and New England Revolution prior to that. His first tournament was the Gold Cup in 2021, where he managed to be the starting keeper among the many goalkeepers that the USA produces. Interestingly, Matt Turner was eligible to play for Lithuania. Anyway, a starter in the 2021 Gold Cup and in the World Cup in 2022, and he actually did participate in the B Team Gold Cup 2023. He was the captain of the team there and started those games too. Since then, he has started 7 of their 9 games, and not selected for 2 others. And there will always be that one game in January where the A team doesn't have a cap. or wasn't selected. Okay, our likely candidate, Ethan Horvath, is 28 years old. He has just 9 caps for the national team since 2016. Again, that's testimony to the many goalkeepers USA produces, so very hard to get in, as well as Turner has done. Ethan Horvath plays for, the city where I grew up, Cardiff, in the English League. So we have special affection for him in this household. He also played for Nottingham Forest in England, or at least was on their roster from 2021 to 2024. So that's the team Turner is with now. And Ethan Horvath has also played in Belgium and Norway. His tournament history goes back as far as the 2016 Copa America Centenario. He's a bit of a shock selection there. However, his next tournament after that was the World Cup in 2022. So he missed 3 Gold Cups in a row. He was a backup keeper in the Gold Cup, in the World Cup in 2022, but not part of the 2023 Gold Cup squad there. So Ethan Horvath has started one of the 9 games since the 2023 Gold Cup, and he was on the bench for 7 and not selected for 1. So Ethan Horvath, a likely candidate to make the squad. Next we have Drake Callender. He's 26 years old, but he has no caps for the United States. He plays for Inter Miami in the USA since 2020, and he was selected for the preliminary squad for the Gold Cup in 2023, but didn't make the final cut. Since then, he's started none of their 9 games, but he was on the bench for 4 of them, although not selected for 5 others. Okay, and then we'll quickly deal with the 2 possible but unlikely candidates. Sean Johnston actually has a lot of tournament experience, the backup keeper, ever since the 2017 Gold Cup, all the way up till the 2023 Gold Cup. However, he's been out with 2 separate injuries for 6 of the 9 last games. He missed the last 2 matches due to injury, though he has since recovered. So he may come back into the fold, but he has been missing a lot of games in the recent period. Gabriel Slonina was on the bench for 2 of the 9 matches and not selected for 7 others. Meanwhile, Zach Steffen, a more familiar name, has not played for the team since being on the bench in March 2023. So again, we'll get more details if those players are selected. Let's summarize the position. So Matt Turner started all 4 games in the World Cup, and all games since then, even the Gold Cup B team there. There was only one friendly, one of those fall friendlies that he missed, and Horvath stepped in to start that one, suggesting that he is the backup keeper. Okay, on we go to defense and central defenders, and we have a definite candidate in Chris Richards. And by the way, if you're watching the YouTube feed on this, you'll see on the graphics that Chris Richards' name is in light gray compared to most of the other players, and that indicates that he has no tournament experience. On the other hand, Tim Ream, the first of our likely candidates, is in black script, so he does have tournament experience. He's likely. So is Miles Robinson. So 2 likely candidates there. Carter Vickers Cameron is a possible candidate, as well as Mark McKenzie and Austin Trusty. So 3 possible candidates there. Neil Jallan is a possible but unlikely candidate. Sorry, I got the name backwards. It's Jallan Neal is the possible but unlikely candidate. And perhaps a bit surprisingly, Walker Zimmerman is seemingly off the squad, as is Aaron Long, Matt Miazga, and Yes, actually, we do have others, but we're going to limit the number of players we deal with here. So I should actually summarize the position before getting into the candidates. For the USA, we saw in section one, it's always four at the back. So we're looking for two central defenders here, always two. Okay, let's look at Chris Richards. He's 24 years old and has been with the USA since 2020 with 16 caps and 1 goal. Richards plays for Crystal Palace in England since 2022, but was with Bayern Munich in Germany for 2 years, or at least on their roster because he was loaned out to Hoffenheim on 2 separate occasions there. He's never been selected for a tournament though, and but recently he has become more of a starter, starting 6 of their 9 games. He was on the bench for 2 and not selected for that January friendly. So basically always selected and usually starting now is Chris Richards, our definite candidate. Next we have Tim Ream. He's still coded as a left back on some of my sources, and we've moved him to central defence here because that's where he's been playing. He's been playing there for quite a while too, so I think I'm going to change him on my own files here to a central defender. Tim Ream is 36 years old now, with 51 caps and 1 goal since 2010 with the national team, and he plays for Fulham in England since 2015, so a long-time member of Fulham, and he has been part of tournaments since the Gold Cup in 2011, but not part of every tournament. He's missed a few there. In fact, his recall to the team for the World Cup in 2022 was a bit of a surprise, and yet he went on to start and finish all 4 games there, so good for Tim Ream. He was not part of the Gold Cup in 2023. We're going to see a lot of the players who played in the World Cup did not play in the Gold Cup in 2023. Tim Ream started 5 of their 9 games since the Gold Cup and was on the bench for 3 matches. So Tim Ream, a likely candidate here. That even might be the profile of a definite candidate. I think we have him likely just because of his age there. He is 36 years old. The other likely candidate, Miles Robinson, is 27 years old, 29 caps and 3 goals for USA since 2019, and he plays for FC Cincinnati in USA since 2024 and was with Atlanta United before that. He was part of the 2021 Gold Cup. That was his first tournament. Not selected for the 2022 World Cup due to injury, and perhaps because of that, played in the 2023 Gold Cup, where he didn't appear in games 1 and 2, but gained a starting position from game 3 onward. So Miles Robinson has started 4 of their 9 games since the 2023 Gold Cup and was on the bench for 5 others. So we see him as, again, probably a definite selection, but we have him as likely because we tend to put the starters, the regular starters, in the definite category. Okay, the first of our 3 possible candidates is Cameron Carter-Vickers, and he's 26 years old with 16 caps for the national team since 2017, so that's not many given the time he's been with the team. Carter-Vickers plays for Celtic in Scotland since 2022 and was on the roster of Tottenham in England from 2016 to 2022, though loaned out quite a bit there. Carter-Vickers was born in England. His first tournament was the World Cup in 2022. So even though he was part of the team since 2017, he missed 3 Gold Cups before the World Cup there. And again, possibly because he was part of the World Cup squad there, where he appeared only in Game 3. He started and finished Game 3, but otherwise didn't appear. Carter Vickers was out for knee surgery during the time of the 2023 Gold Cup. He actually missed the first 2 games of this period, still recovering from that knee surgery, and he started 2 of their 9 games overall, subbed in for 2, and not selected for the last 3 matches. So Carter Vickers, just a possible candidate here, and never good when they're not selected in the matches directly before the Cup. Of course, we have the 2 warm-up matches to look at in part 2. Okay, the next possible candidate is Mark McKenzie. He is 25 years old and has 13 caps for USA since 2020. He plays for Genk in Belgium since 2021, Philadelphia Union before that. He has never been called up to a tournament, though. He made the preliminary squad for the 2023 Gold Cup, but otherwise not selected, even though he's been around for a while. Actually, yes, okay. Anyway, Mark McKenzie didn't start any of their games over the recent period, any of their 9 games, but he was subbed in for 2, and he was on the bench for the last 2, and not selected for 5 others. But the fact that he was on the bench for the last 2 is his claim to being a possible candidate here. Finally, we have Austin Trusty, also a possible candidate. He's 26 years old, but just 2 caps for the national team since 2023. And Trusty plays for Sheffield United in England. He was on the roster of Arsenal in England too. But he was loaned out to other teams there, and he too has not any experience in tournament play. Has made the preliminary squad for a couple of Gold Cups there, but not actually making the team. And in fact, he was off the team for most of the period we're talking about. He returned after a 16-month absence in March of 2024. And actually started one of the 2 remaining games, and was on the bench for 1 other. So perhaps making a late bid to get on the team for this tournament is Austin Trusty. We'll take a quick look at our 2 possible but unlikely candidates. Jalen Neal hasn't been selected for any of the games since the 2023 Gold Cup. He was injured for all of them, out with 3 separate injuries for poor Jalen Neal. He was part of the Gold Cup squad, though, in 2023, so part of the B team there, but possible but unlikely here. Walker Zimmerman was a starter in the World Cup. That's why I say it's a bit of a surprise, but he has been off the team since June of 2023. He wasn't selected for the Gold Cup. And in fact, I think he's played very little for the team since the World Cup in 2022. He has played games after, but if you'll recall, he actually committed the foul that gave Wales a penalty in that tournament. My loyalties are to Wales, so I'm happy about it. But we're a little mad at Walker Zimmerman here in Canada, because in the 2021 Gold Cup, we felt he committed a foul that we should have gotten the penalty on. But anyway, Walker Zimmerman, seemingly off the squad here. Aaron Long, it's one of the few players like Turner who played both in the World Cup and in the 2023 Gold Cup, but he hasn't appeared since the Gold Cup, so we have him seemingly off the squad. And Matt Miazga has several Gold Cups under his belt, including the Gold Cup in 2023, but he has not been selected since then. So all of those players, Zimmerman, Long, Miazga, seemingly off the squad. Okay, that is it. Kind of a long list there, but keep in mind we are filling 2 positions here. So I'll give a summary of the position. In the World Cup, it was the pairing of Ream and Zimmerman in 3 of the 4 games. And for one of the games, Carter Vickers replaced Zimmerman. Zimmerman basically disappeared from the squad after, so the central defense position has been a rotation of 4 players, primarily Ream and Richards. Ream has started 5 of the 8 games, we'll say, not counting the January 2024 game. Ream has started 5. Richards has started 6. The other 2 players are Miles Robinson. He has 3 starts, including the last game, though, and the other is Carter Vickers with just 2 starts. So it's still primarily Ream and Richards, but we see Robinson and Carter Vickers making it into the rotation there. All right, that is central defence. Let's move on to the left back position. And just a summary of the position here. It is always a left back and a right back position. They never use a formation which has these positions pushing up to a winger role, which we do see quite often for other teams. All right, let's look at the candidates. We have Anthony Robinson as a likely candidate, so no definite candidates here, but we have 2 likely candidates. Christopher Lund is the other one, and then a possible candidate in Dewan Jones, and seemingly off the squad is John Tolkien. Okay, let's look at these candidates. Anthony Robinson is 26 years old and he has 40 caps and 4 goals for the USA since 2018. He plays for Fulham in England since 2020. And he was actually born in France, was Anthony Robinson. And despite being on the team since 2018, he wasn't selected for the Gold Cup or in the Gold Cups in 2019 or 2021, but he was a starter in the World Cup in 2022. And likely because of that, he was not part of the B team for the Gold Cup 2023. Over the past recent period, he has started 5 of their 9 games, Anthony Robinson, and he was on the bench for 1, but not selected for 3 matches. So we consider him a likely candidate here, certainly an A-team player, judging by his starting all 4 games in the 2022 World Cup. All right, Anthony Robinson, then a likely candidate. Christopher Lund is also a likely candidate. He is 22 years old and new to the team since 2023. He has 3 caps already and he plays for Palermo in Italy. Otherwise, his teams have been in Sweden and Denmark because he was born in Denmark. So Lund got his first appearance after the Gold Cup, the 2023 Gold Cup. He came in September of 2023 and started 2 of their remaining 9 games, subbed in for 1 and was on the bench for 5. So Christopher Lund, regularly selected and a likely candidate here. Next, the possible candidate, Dewan Jones, is 26 years old with 8 caps. Since 2023. He plays for New England Revolution in USA since 2019, and he was selected for the Gold Cup in 2023. He didn't appear in game 1, but gained a starting position for the remaining 8 games. That was a B team, though, and since then he has started only 1 of their 9 games, subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 2. But not selected for 5 matches, Dewan Jones. So it is difficult for these B team players to break into the A team. Dewan Jones, an example of that here, and just a possible candidate. Finally, we have John Tolkien. Well, he was the player who started game 1 in the Gold Cup and then lost his starting position. So we have him on the list here because he was part of the Gold Cup squad. But the only game he actually has played in since then is that B team or really C team game in January of 2023. So we're putting him seemingly off the squad, John Tolkien. Let's summarize the position of left back. It was Anthony Robinson in all 4 games of the World Cup. He started the first of the fall friendlies, but Lund came in and played 2 of the next 3. The 4th one was played by Dest, who we're going to meet right away here. Dest switching sides because he's usually a right back. Robinson did resume the position for the November and for the March games there. So Robinson looking like the most likely candidate here, or most likely starter for sure. Okay, and let's go over to the right back position. And we've just mentioned our definite candidate, Serginho Dest. But he does have an injury tag on him that we'll have to talk about. We have a likely candidate in Joe Scally, and then seemingly off the squad, several players. Shaq Moore. It looks like Shaq Moore has officially changed his name from Shaquille Moore because all of the websites now call him Shaq Moore. Brian Reynolds also seemingly off the squad, and DeAndre Yedlin seemingly off the squad as well. Let's go back and look at the candidates. Serginho Dest is 23 years old, and he has 25 caps and 2 goals for USA since 2019. He plays, or is on the roster at least, for Barcelona in Spain since 2020. But recently, since 2023, he's been loaned out to PSV Eindhoven in the Netherlands and also to AC Milan in Italy. Still very respectable clubs. So he was born in the Netherlands actually and grew up through the Ajax youth system primarily. Serginho Dest, despite being with the team since 2019, didn't reach a tournament until the 2022 World Cup, where he was a starter in all 4 games, and he did not appear in the 2023 Gold Cup there. Dest started 7 of their 9 games, though, since the time of the 2023 Gold Cup, and was not selected for 2 others. So we have Dest as a definite candidate. However, he is out with a cruciate ligament tear since late April and not expected back until January 2025. So that puts him out of the tournament here. So we'll pay particular attention to Joe Scally, actually the only right back here who seems likely to make it. They could call up one of the others, or they could use a central defender or some out of position player to cover if Scally is not the one. Joe Scally is 21 years old, and he's been with the USA since 2022 and has 9 caps and no goals. He was part of the World Cup 2022 squad there, on the bench for all 4 games, and not part of the B team Gold Cup in 2023. Scally has started 2 of their 9 games since that Gold Cup, subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 4. So a likely candidate to make the squad, and all that much more likely with the injury to Serginho Dest. We'll take a look at Shaq Moore, because he was selected for the World Cup in 2022, suggesting an A-team player there. He was subbed into games 2 and 3 during the World Cup, but otherwise a bench player, and not selected for the Gold Cup there. Since the Gold Cup, strangely, I feel, was selected for that January 2024, which I've been calling a C-team game. That was the only game he's appeared in since the 2023 Gold Cup. And so we're counting him as seemingly off the squad. Brian Reynolds also was part of the 2023 Gold Cup squad, but hasn't appeared since then. And DeAndre Yedlin, again, one of the players who was part of the World Cup squad and the 2023 Gold Cup squad. There, he was a substitute in the World Cup and a starter in the 2023 Gold Cup. He lost his starting position there. However, he has not appeared since the Gold Cup in 2023. So it kind of looks like DeAndre Yedlin moving kind of from being an A team player to a B team player there. Okay, those are the candidates. So let's summarize the position. It was Serginho Dest in all 4 games of the World Cup. He started all 4 friendlies, but as we saw when we were talking about the left back position, he did switch to the left side once there. Scally played as the right back for that game. And after that, Dest has played all of the rest of the games, except for the last one, the second game in March 2024, where Scally once again played in the position. So, yes, it'll be interesting then to look at the warm-up games in June to see how they manage Dest's absence. Okay, we move on to the midfield. And we begin with defensive midfielders. Our first, I'll talk about the position first before we get into the candidates. So the USA, as we said in section 1, plays a 4-3-3 formation in 2/3 of their games over this period. So we will regard the 4-3-3 formation as a single central midfielder with a left midfielder and a right midfielder, so separate categories for those positions. In other formations, like the 4-4-2, this defensive central midfielder position is a 2-man position. Okay, for defensive midfielders, we have Tyler Adams, actually captain of the team. Tyler Adams, but he's only a possible candidate here. I put him in the wrong place on my graphics. And we also have James Sands seemingly off the team. Let's take a look at those candidates. So Tyler Adams is 25 years old with 36 caps and 1 goal, and he plays for Bournemouth in England since 2023 with Leeds United and RB Leipzig in Germany before that. The only tournament he's been a part of is the 2022 World Cup, where he was the captain. He was actually selected for the final squad for the 2019 Gold Cup. But he was injured for that one and had to withdraw. So the 2023 World Cup, 2022 World Cup, he started and finished all 4 games there, not part of the B team for the 2023 Gold Cup. So basically, he had been off the team since the World Cup. When he returned after a 15-month absence, I wonder if he's still captain of the team in that case. Anyway, Adams returned in March 2024 and started one of their 2 remaining games and was on the bench for the others. So absent for a while, but now back. And we have him as just a possible candidate here. James Sands we have on the list really because he was a starter in the 2023 Gold Cup, but he's a B team player, not selected for the World Cup, but has been selected for the 2021 and 2023 Gold Cups. He also, like Shaq Moore, was not selected for any games since the 2023 Gold Cup, except that January friendly with Slovenia, which for the most part was a C team. Anyway, James Sands looking like we're going to say seemingly off the squad here because we're not really counting that January friendly. Again, we'll give more details if he is selected. And before we summarize the position, we're going to go through central midfielders because basically it's the same thing in the 4-3-3 formation. There's no specifically defensive midfielders. Central midfielders, we have Yunus Musa as a definite candidate. He's actually coded as a right winger, but we move him here because he's been playing in central defense. We have Luca de la Torre as a possible candidate here, and also possible Johnny Cardozo. And we have Aidan Morris and Gianluca Busio as possible but unlikely candidates. And Kellen Acosta seemingly off the squad. We have several players seemingly off the squad. Alan Sonora, Jackson Ewell, and Christian Roldan, all of those players seemingly off the squad. Okay, let's go back and look at the more likely ones. Yunus Musa is just 21 years old, but has 35 caps for the USA already since 2020. And he plays for AC Milan in Italy, Valencia before that. He was part of the World Cup in 2022, a starter in that cup. Not selected then for the Gold Cup, the B-Team Gold Cup in 2023, but since then has started 7 of their 9 games, as well as subbing in for 1. So Yunus Musa, a definite candidate here. Luca de la Torre is a possible candidate. He's 26 years old with 20 caps for the national team since 2018. Again, coded as a right midfielder, but we've moved him here because his only 2 starts were here. De la Torre, despite joining, his club record is, or his club is Celta de Vigo in Spain since 2022, and he was with Heracles in Netherlands and Fulham in England prior to that. De la Torre did not make the first 2 tournaments after his start in 2018, but did make the did make the World Cup in 2022, where he was on the roster, although he saw no action. So not selected for the Gold Cup in 2023, as most players who made the World Cup did not. I have lost my syntax. As most players who made the World Cup did not. No, I can't retrieve that sentence. I just hope you know what I mean. I'm going to jump to his post or his recent record with 2 out of their 9 games as a starter, and subbed in for 2 and was on the bench for 2. He was injured for the last 2 actually, but he had since recovered. So Luca de la Torre, a possible candidate here. Johnny Cardoso, probably less likely. He is 22 years old with 11 caps for USA since 2020. He plays for Real Betis in Spain since 2024 and was with Internacional in Brazil, one of their top clubs, from 2019 to 2023. He has never been selected for a tournament, though. He made the preliminary squads for the Gold Cup in 2021 and the 2023 edition, but was not selected in either case. Over the past short while, he has started 1 of their 9 games, as well as subbing in for 3. And he was out with 2 related injuries for 4 of those matches. So just a possible candidate here, Johnny Cardoso. It will be his first tournament if he makes it. Okay, we have 2 possible but unlikely candidates, and they're on the list really because they were participants in the 2023 Gold Cup, so they're B-team players. So Aidan Morris, though, has not been selected for the team except for that January friendly. So we are seeing a few of their B-team players on that squad, but we don't think it really counts. And so we have him as possible, but unlikely. Gianluca Busso in the same situation, except he hasn't played at all since the 2023 Gold Cup, where he was selected. He was part of the 2021 and 2023 Gold Cup squads, Gianluca Busso, but a B-team member. And that's going to be true of the rest of the players who are seemingly off the squad. Kellen Acosta has been part of many tournaments, including the World Cup in 2022, where he was a substitute. But he hasn't appeared for the national team since April of 2023, so even before the Gold Cup there. So Kellen Acosta Maybe a bit harsh to say seemingly off the squad, since April 2023 is not that long ago. But anyway, certainly not an A-team player, although it looked like he was and has kind of lost that status. Next is Alan Sonora. He was part of the Gold Cup in 2023, but hasn't been selected since. Jackson Ewell, same. He was just a substitute in the Gold Cup. No, just on the bench, actually. And brought into that tournament after the group stage, but hasn't been selected since. So Jackson Ewell, seemingly off the squad. And finally, Christian Roldan actually was selected for every tournament since the 2017 Gold Cup, including the World Cup, where he was on the bench for all 4 games. And he did play. He was selected for the 2023 Gold Cup. He subbed into 4 of the games there. However, he has not been selected since then, injured for the games in September, but otherwise just not selected. So Christian Roldan seemingly off the team. So a lot of players there, but most of them not likely candidates. Let's summarize the position. In the World Cup, it was Tyler Adams. Keeping in mind the 4-3-3 formation, this is right in the center of the pitch. In one game, they used a 4-4-2, so that's 2 central midfielders, and that was Tyler Adams and Musa in that game, who we've moved to central defense, Yunus Musa. With Adams out after the Cup, Musa himself became the main central midfielder in the Gold Cup. Oh, sorry, in the World Cup, we're going to see he was primarily a right midfielder. After the Cup, the centre man, Luca de la Torre had actually started the first game of the fall friendlies before Musa took over, and he was the only player to be in the position more than once other than Musa. He partnered with Musa in the second November game, did De La Torre. For the March 2024 games, Adam came back after his 15-month absence, and he played in the position in the second last game, but Musa once again occupied the position in the last game. So that's one to look at for the November warm-up games. And that is central midfielders. We're going to move on to left midfielders, who we're looking at in their own category here. And we have Weston McKennie as a definite candidate. In fact, the only candidate over here is Weston McKennie, so we can go directly to looking at him. Weston McKennie is 25 years old with 51 caps and 11 goals. He's been with USA since 2017, and he plays for Juventus in Italy since 2021. He's also played in England briefly and for Schalke in Germany. Weston McKennie has been part of tournaments since the 2019 Gold Cup, actually not selected for the 2021 Gold Cup. He was selected, though, for the World Cup in 2022, where he started all 4 games, and then not selected for the 2023 Gold Cup. In fact, he couldn't have been selected because he was under suspension, at least for the first 3 games for the group stage of that tournament. Both he and Serginho Dest got into trouble in the 2022-23 Nations League semi-final with Mexico. I think they got a red card and further punishment after. Anyway, as an 18 player, he probably wouldn't have joined anyway. Since that Gold Cup in 2023, McKennie has started 6 of their 9 games and subbed in for 1. So we consider him a definite candidate for this cup. And the only player in this category. We're also going to see that he switches to the other side. Oh, that means I got to summarize the position here. Okay, so This position of left midfielder in the 4-3-3 formation was used 3 times in the 4 World Cup games. So McKennie played the position, although he and Musa switched sides in game 1. We're going to see Musa was generally the right midfielder there, especially in the World Cup. And in the recent period, it's mostly McKennie too, although he switched sides twice here as well. Attacking midfielder Reina plays the role when he switches sides or when he's not there, or at least Giovanni Reina played the role twice, and Musa once. And the position was not used in three of the 9 games there. Okay, over to the right side. And we don't have Musa here because even though he was the right midfielder in the World Cup, he became the central midfielder after the Gold Cup there. So here we have Malik Tillman as a likely candidate. He's actually coded as a attacking midfielder, but he's been playing here. 2 of his 3 starts were in this position. And he is a likely candidate. The only other candidate we have here is Julian Gressel, who seems to be off the squad. So let's take a look at the candidates here. Malik Tillman is 25 years old, and he has 10 caps for the national team since 2022. He is with Bayern Munich, kind of between their A team and their B team. For Bayern Munich in Germany since 2021, and he has been loaned out, or was loaned out by them. He was not part of any tournaments. I think he was a consideration for the World Cup 2022 squad, but was not selected. And for the 2023 Gold Cup, he had a hamstring injury. So he actually returned after a fairly long absence in September of 2023 and started 3 of their remaining 9 games, as well as subbing in for 3. And Tillman seems a bit injury prone, was injured for 2 of the games. He is recovered now and not selected for 1. I think that was the January friendly. So a name I'm not really familiar with, I gotta say, Malik Tillman, but a likely candidate to make the squad based on his participation record and his club affiliation. Bayern Munich also speaks well to his chances. Next, we have Julian Gressel. We won't go into detail on him. He was part of the the Gold Cup squad in 2023, but he hasn't been selected since then, so is seemingly off the squad. Okay, let's summarize this position. So Musa effectively played the 3 games of the World Cup where they used this formation, but we did see that he switched sides with McKennie in one of the games. However, we've moved him to central midfielder since he himself has moved to that position and has played mostly there since. Tillman played the 2nd game of the period there, and he did come back to play it in the last game as well. So Tillman with 2 starts as a right midfielder. And we could say that attacking midfielder Reina effectively took this position because he replaced McKenna, who moved over to play on this side. So it seems like they have a little difficulty filling this role. They haven't decided on a firm candidate, and it almost seems that that was why they went with a different formation in the March games. I'm just speculating there, but the absence of a right midfielder perhaps forcing a change in formation. Anyway, for the time being, it seems like Malik Tillman is the best candidate over here. However, with Adams coming back into the picture, we might see Musa coming back over to this side. Okay, let's move on to left attackers. This is kind of a category we've created ourselves. The position can be left wing, left attacking midfielder, or left forward. For USA, they use the 4-3-3 67% of the time. So for them, it's usually a left forward position. But in the 4-4-2 formation, it's a left wing role. And they did use a 4-2-3-1 formation also, where it's a left attacking midfield role. But it's usually the same player for USA and for many teams. So that's why we've created this category. Let's look at the candidates. We have a definite candidate in Christian Pulisic, and a likely candidate in Brendan Aronson, and a possible candidate in Kevin Paredes. Okay, so Christian Pulisic is 25 years old. He has 66 caps and an impressive 28 goals for the USA since 2016. And he now plays for AC Milan in Italy since 2023. He was with Chelsea in England from 2019 to 2023. He was with Borussia Dortmund before that, and also loaned out to them by Chelsea, and with their youth club as well. Christian Pulisic, and has been part of the tournament since the 2016 Copa Centenario in 2016. I think I said that. Okay, so basically he's missed a few Gold Cups there, but he's an 18 player starting for the USA all 4 games in the World Cup in 2022, and consequently, as most 18 players didn't do the 2023 Gold Cup, he wasn't part of that squad. Over the recent period, Pulisic has started 6 of their 9 games, and he was injured for 1 of them and not selected for 2 others. So Christian Pulisic, a definite candidate here. Brendan Aronson, the likely candidate, is coded as an attacking midfielder, and he was moved here because his only start was in this position. Brendan Aronson is 23 years old with 40 caps and 8 goals since 2020, and he plays for Leeds United in England, or at least is on their roster since 2022. He was loaned to Union Berlin in Germany since 2023, and prior to that played for Red Bull Salzburg in Austria. The only tournament he's been involved in is the World Cup in 2022, and he was a substitute in all 4 games of that cup, not part of the 2023 Gold Cup squad there. Brendan Aronson has started 1 of their 9 games since the 2023 Gold Cup, but he was subbed in for 7 games. So just that January friendly that he was not selected for. So we have him as a likely candidate to make the squad, probably not a starter. Okay, and I think yes, Kevin Paredes then is a possible candidate. He is coded as a left midfielder, but has played in this position in his only start. Kevin Paredes is 21 years old with 3 caps for the USA since 2023. He plays for Wolfsburg in Germany since 2022, moving there from DC United in the USA. And Paredes is one of the few players actually who's just appeared since after the Gold Cup. He first appeared in September of 2023 and started 1 of their remaining 9 games, as well as subbing in for 2 and being on the bench for 3. However, Paredes was not selected for the last 3 matches, and so we have him as just a possible candidate here. Before we summarize the position, I'm going to add 1 more name to the list here at the possible but unlikely level, and that is Cade Cole. So he was the primarily, well, in the Gold Cup, they used 4 different players to play in this position. Cade Cole was the only player to play it twice, and he hasn't started any of their games since the Gold Cup, but he was on the bench for the first two after the Gold Cup, and then not selected for the 7 matches after that. So bit of a better chance than most of the B team there of making the final squad here, but only at the possible but unlikely level. Okay, now we're ready to summarize the position, and it was Pulisic in all 4 games of the World Cup. He played all games thereafter, except for the 2 March games in 2024, where Kevin Paredes and Brendan Aronson each got a start. Okay, that is the left attacking position. So Pulisic looking like the likely candidate there. And we move over to the right attacking side of the field. Here we have a definite candidate in Timothy Weah. He's actually coded as a forward, but has been playing over here. And then we have a possible candidate in Alejandro Zendejas. We also have Malik Tillman here, who is coded as an attacking midfielder. He did play over here in 1 game, but he played 2 games as right midfielder, so we moved him and talked about him there. So just the 2 candidates to look at here. First, Timothy Weah is 24 years old, with 29 caps and 4 goals for the USA since 2018, and he plays for Juventus in Italy since 2023. He's been with Lille and Paris Saint-Germain in France, and was loaned to Scotland as well. Timothy Weah. He has not been part of any tournament actually up until the 2022 World Cup, where he started all 4 games there, and not part of the B team for the 2023 Gold Cup. So Weah has never actually played in a Gold Cup, despite being on the team since 2018 and 3 Gold Cups being played during his time. After the 2023 Gold Cup, Weah started 6 of their 9 games. He was injured for 2 of those, and the other one was that January friendly. So Timothy Weah looking a definite candidate here. He has recovered, by the way, from his injury. And we move on to our possible candidate, Alejandro Zendejas. And he's on the list because he was a starter in the Gold Cup. He actually started as a left attacker once and a right attacker 2 or 3 times. 3 times there. And has been involved actually since the Gold Cup. So again, one of the few B team players that has. Zendejas was on the bench for 4 matches, but not selected for 5 of them, including the last 2 matches. So kind of on the edge of the A team here is Zendejas. And I think I forgot to go over his basic information. He's 26 years old with 9 caps and 1 goal for USA since 2023. He actually has 2 caps from Mexico. They must have been friendlies because he was allowed to join the US team, but he plays in Mexico and was born there. Zendejas plays for Copa America in Mexico since 2022, and was with Guadalajara for a while. But actually, his youth club was FC Dallas, and his first club. So he has kind of a foot in each country, but has put his allegiance to the US and is a possible candidate here, Alejandro Zendejas. Okay, that is the right attacker. So it looks like Timothy Weah over here. We have the central attacking midfield position, and just a word on the position itself. The position is rarely used. If you think about the 4-3-3 position, it's usually central midfielders playing there. However, in the 4-3-2-1 position, the 4-2-3-1 position, which they used twice, that calls for a central attacker. So, we have a lot of players coded as attacking midfielders. We've moved some of them around, but we've kept Giovanni Reina here as a definite candidate. We have Paxton Aronson as a possible but unlikely candidate here, and Georgi Mihailovic as seemingly off the squad. So let's take a look. Giovanni Reyna is 21 years old, but has 18 caps and 4 goals for the national team since 2020. And he plays for Borussia Dortmund in Germany since 2020, but was loaned to Nottingham Forest in England since 2024. So he was not part of the 2021 Gold Cup, a bit of a surprise non-selection there, but he was selected for the 2022 World Cup, where he was a substitute coming into 2 of the games. But the 2023 Gold Cup, he probably wouldn't have come because it was the B team, but he was injured anyway, so wouldn't have been able to play regardless. Giovanni Reyna has started 6 of their 9 games since the 2023 Gold Cup. He was injured for the first 2 of those, actually, so the only game he really wasn't selected for was that January friendly, which none of the 18 was really involved with. I think one A-team player might have been, and then we saw a few B-team players involved. Okay, the next candidate is Paxton Aronson. He is 21 years old, with 1 cap for the national team since 2023, and he plays for Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany since 2023, but was loaned to Vitesse in the Netherlands since 2024. Prior to that, he was with Philadelphia Union in the USA. He didn't start any of their games. Oh, I should say he was not selected for any tournament, not selected for the 2023 Gold Cup. But since didn't start any games, but was on the bench for 2 matches and not selected for 7, including the last 3. So Paxton Aronson, a possible but unlikely candidate. Georgi Mihailovic is on the list because he was basically the starter in the 2023 Gold Cup there, but has not been selected for any matches since. So Georgi Mihailovic seemingly off the squad. So let's talk about the position, rarely used as it is, just 2 times, and it was Giovanni Reyna who filled the spot both times. But we have seen Reyna playing in other positions as well. Okay, that is it for the midfield, and we move on to forwards. We don't have any players coded as secondary strikers, so just centre forwards. And let's talk about the position here. Usually it's a 1-man position. We regard the 4-3-3, which they use 2/3 of the time. We regard that as a single forward with a left attacker and a right attacker there. Also, it's a single position in the 4-2-3-1, which they've used 2 times. So only on 2 occasions has it been a 2-man forward line. Those are when they've tried out other formations. So we're usually looking for a single player here, but once in a while 2 players. The definite candidate is Folarin Balogun, and we have a likely candidate in Ricardo Pepe, and Haji Wright is the first, is the only candidate at the possible level here, and then Jesus Ferreira at the possible but unlikely level. And we have a couple of players seemingly off the squad, Jordan Morris and Brandon Vasquez. And we should actually put Josh Sargent on the list because he comes up in the narrative too. So I'll put Josh Sargent actually because he was an 18 player. We'll put him on the top of the seemingly off the squad list. Okay, let's look at the candidates here. Folarin Balogun is just 22 years old. He has 10 caps and 3 goals for USA since 2023 and plays for Monaco in the French league since 2023. Was on the roster of Arsenal before that, but loaned out by them to Reims in France and Middlesbrough in England. So Balogun has not participated in any tournament. He was on the preliminary squad. That was a huge preliminary squad of 60 players for the 2023 Gold Cup. Not selected though, and however, he has since started 7 of their 9 games, as well as subbing in for 1. So Balogun now looks like a fixture in the team, and we consider him a definite candidate. Next, we have Ricardo Pepi, 21 years old, so very young also, with 14 caps and 6 goals since 2021. And Pepe plays for PSV Eindhoven in the Netherlands and Augsburg in Germany before that. Pepe hasn't made it to any tournaments, though. Despite being the second top scorer in World Cup 2022 qualifying, he wasn't selected, and nor was he selected for the Gold Cup in 2023. So Pepe, though, has started 1 of their 9 games since the Gold Cup, as well as subbing in for 5 and being on the bench for 1. So just 1 game there that he has not been selected for, probably that January friendly. So now Ricardo Pepi looking like a likely candidate for this tournament. Next, Haji Wright, our possible candidate, is 26 years old, 9 caps and 4 goals for the USA since 2020, and he plays for Coventry in England since 2023, and he's been around a bit, playing for teams in Turkey and Denmark and the Netherlands and Germany as well. Haji Wright was selected for the World Cup in 2022. He subbed into 3 of the games there, and he was not part of the Gold Cup 2023 squad. In March of 2024, he returned after a 15-month absence and started 1 of their 2 remaining games and subbed in for the others. So Haji Wright, looking like a possible candidate here because of that recent participation. Okay, next we have Jesus Ferreira. So he is, well, we won't do the bio on him, but he actually is one of the few players to appear both in the World Cup and in the Gold Cup. And he was just a substitute in the World Cup, coming in for 1 of the games. In the 2023 Gold Cup, he was a starter. All 5 games Jesus Ferreira started, but he hadn't started any of their games since the 2023 Gold Cup. He was out with 2 separate injuries for the last 5 matches, although he is still recovered. And he was also on the bench for 4 matches. So that's kind of an 18 player, Jesus Ferreira. Perhaps that injury getting in the way a little bit here. We have him as a possible but unlikely candidate. Okay, let's just quickly go over the one seemingly off the squad. Josh Sargent was actually selected for the World Cup in 2022 and indeed started the games, 2 of the games at least. However, he hadn't appeared for the USA since 2022 or since the World Cup. Jordan Morris, actually also part of the World Cup squad, a substitute in the 2022 World Cup and a starter in the 2023 Gold Cup, but he did lose his starting position there and has not appeared for the national team since the 2023 Gold Cup. Finally, Brandon Vasquez was a substitute, popular with the crowd there in the USA, and subbed into some Gold Cup 2023 games, but ultimately not selected to the final squad. Actually hasn't been called up for any of their matches since the 2023 Gold Cup. Sorry, I kind of lost my head there. I was trying to figure something out as I was speaking, and I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Okay, but what I was trying to say was that he hasn't been selected since the Gold Cup. Brandon Vasquez. Okay, so those are the candidates there. So let's summarize the position. In the World Cup, it was various players over their 4 games. Only Josh Sargent appeared twice. But Balogun took firm control of the position from after the 2023 Gold Cup. And Haji Wright was one of the players who had appeared once in the World Cup. He took over for the first of the March games, and Pepe partnered Balogun in the only game in this period that had a 2-man front line. So Pepe and Wright slightly involved, but Balogun with a firm grip on the position. And it just strikes me that I don't think I summarized the right attacking midfield position. But anyway, I won't go back and do it. It is Timothy Weah, the main candidate there. Okay, that does bring us to the end of our look at the players. And so we're just going to move on to section 3 here and any closing thoughts. So really, closing thought is a bit like Mexico's team, where, you know, in the past they were very difficult to do mediacast for because we just had players coming out of the woodwork, all sorts of players and candidates and B teams and A teams, even a C team that we see here for the USA. But they do seem to have organized it, and for both Mexico and USA here we see fairly steady starters, and that's actually a good transition to the next step, the review of starters. I'm just going to pause the video to set that up. Okay, here we are back at the top of the list, and we have Greg Berhalter, the manager. We'll put him as a definite candidate because we don't think he'll be dismissed before the tournament begins. Goalkeepers, it's very solid yes for Matt Turner. We're quite confident in that. Again, this is all kind of based on them bringing their A team, which is not actually guaranteed, but we're kind of going on that basis here. For the central defenders, it's not so clear cut. Chris Richards, probably I would highlight as a definite starter, even though he has started really only 6 of the 8 games. Tim Ream would be next in line, and then Miles Robinson and Carter Vickers more like stand-in players. But I'm not confident enough to highlight Tim Ream there, and I wouldn't be surprised to see someone else starting. I'm looking forward to the warm-up games to see if there's any further insight into that. In the left-back position, we have Anthony Robinson, probably the most likely candidate here, but he is only a likely candidate to make the squad. He started 5 of their last games. He kind of was Lund, the other likely candidate, kind of looked like he was taking over the position, and then we saw Serginho Dest coming over to play one time, Robinson coming back into the position. I'm really kind of explaining it to myself here. I'm going to go with Robinson in blue rather than green, suggesting not full confidence, but we think he's the likely starter. Okay, on the right back position, well, it would have been Serginho Dest for sure, but he's out with an injury, so I'm very curious to see what they will do there. Joe Scally has started twice, seemed to be the backup position for Serginho Dest, but I wouldn't be surprised to see another player called in even as a starter, or someone in another position as starter. We're not confident enough to nominate Joe Scally as the starter there. Okay, in the midfield, kind of an interesting situation there. We divided it into the central midfielder with a left and a right midfielder in separate categories because the USA uses a 4-3-3 formation about 2/3 of the time. So it looked definitely like Tyler Adams was the man. He was in the World Cup, and then he disappeared for 15 months despite being captain of the team. I'm not dead sure what happened there. Yunus Musa was the player who came into the position. Well, we're definitely going to highlight Yunus Musa as a starter because one of two things will happen here. Either Yunus Musa will start in the middle and perhaps Malik Tillman will start on the right with McKennie on the left. Or Tyler Adams will come back into the position in the middle, and it'll be Yunus Musa on the right and McKennie on the left. So we're definitely not going to highlight Tyler Adams because he's only just come back in March. We will highlight Yunus Musa as a definite starter, and on the left midfield, even though he switches sometimes to the right, Weston McKennie, we are confident will be a starter there. Moving up to the attacking midfield, Christian Pulisic is a definite candidate here. We think for sure he will be the starter, and we're also fully confident in Timothy Weah on the right attacking side of the field. Central attackers, Giovanni Reyna. I just want to kind of review how many starts he has. I don't think he's started enough for us to be confident he's going to be a starter. And he's started in various positions, but hasn't really nailed down a starting position for himself. He has started 6 of the 9 games, Giovanni Reyna. So probably, I would say, strong potential to be a starter, but we're not confident enough to highlight him here. Okay, I'll equivocate and say in blue, we're highlighting in blue as a likely but not definite starter. In the forward line, interestingly, if you think of how much they struggled in World Cup qualifying to find a scorer, now they seem very satisfied with Folarin Balogun as their starter. Starting all their games almost over the recent period. So we're confident enough to say that he will be a definite starter here. Okay, that's it. Our blaze through the squad for a review of the starters, and then we're going to finish here with a review of injuries. So really just the one I forgot to put it on my list. I'll just wing it, and just the one, Serginho Dest, out with believe it was a cruciate ligament injury, out until 2025, January 2025. So no chance of making the squad here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the right back position. Otherwise, no injuries concerns, but we will update it in part 2, and that's our last order of business, is previewing part 2. So we're going to go back over the list that we created here and see who made it and who didn't. So we will highlight any notable non-selections that would be definite or likely candidates that were not selected. Any surprise inclusion, that would be possible but unlikely or below players who were selected, or new players who come into the squad. There's always a couple of those, and then we will update any further injuries, although there won't be any new news, I'm sure, on Serginho Dest, because that's a long-term injury. Okay, well, we hope that that look at the USA helps you to enjoy watching them during the Cup. And I got my graphic dead on there. We will see you for part 2. We would like to thank Paul Udin and Pixabay for the wonderful background music accompanying this mediacast. The piece is called Victory Epic Music.